So welcome back to another episode of Moving Mountains. I'm Samaya Simone and I'm here with my co-host.
Aisha Battle.
Dr. Sheila Ely.
And we have a special guest with us today, Zahir Rashed. And he is here to talk to us again about the Dr. Sebi lifestyle, but in particular, gluten intolerance, because many people come into that lifestyle and they're not able to digest gluten. So what do? Right? So we want to thank you so much for being with us today.
It's a pleasure, man. This is beautiful. Anytime.
I think the first thing, Zahir, is to explain to people what a gluten intolerance is, because I get this question, believe it or not, all of the time when I talk about a gluten-free, casein-free diet, and they'll say, well, what exactly is gluten? And even my daughter, who went off to college in Pennsylvania, she's completely gluten dairy-free. And I had to explain to her roommates what a gluten intolerance was and why she's staying away from it, because they just couldn't understand it. So let's start there, explaining to people what is a gluten intolerance.
Well, first of all, gluten. I'll read it because I looked it up, on the internet. But I can tell you in my own words, but I'm, pretty much what they have on the internet here. And this is from celiac.org. A lot of the information that I look up is off of. I try to stay away from .coms because a lot of times .coms, they don't have correct or accurate information. So I also like to look at studies and stuff that colleges do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this is from celiac.org, and gluten is a general name for proteins found in wheat, barley, and rye. Okay. It's also found in spelt, kamut, gram, and einkorn. And there's another name. It's called triticale or something like that. It's like a cross between wheat and rye. Okay. And what gluten does is pretty much it helps your food maintain shape or whatever. So if you look at the word gluten, the root word in gluten is glue. All right. So that should tell you what its action is. All right. It's to keep things together or whatever. All right. So, so it holds your food together, and it's found in, like I said, those types of food. It's found in your traditional flour, And the thing is that you have two types of gluten. All right, you have an ancient gluten, which is found in, like, with Dr. Sebi. He has a couple different. I guess what you would call them herbs or whatever, or plants. That's on his nutritional guide. And that's kamut, that's spelt, and rye. Okay. Those are traditional grains, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the gluten in those are water soluble. Okay. And that's key. All right, because the wheat that we have today and the rye and the barley that we have, and barley is in beer, and you got a lot of people who drink beer. It's not water soluble, and that's the issue right there. So it's traditional gluten. You see what I'm saying? So mainly everything that we have today has the traditional gluten in it, and what it does is when it gets into your digestive tract, first of all, I suffer from it. I don't have celiac, I have an intolerance. Okay. And when it gets into your digestive system, you have hairs called cilia that helps move your food along in your digestive tract. What it does is it glues those hairs together.
Oh, is that what it is?
Right, because it's not water soluble. Like, you know, our bodies is made up of mostly water. It's supposed to be able to dissolve in water. When it doesn't dissolve, it sits there and it glues the hairs together. And what happens is your food get caught in pockets inside your digestive tract, and it starts to ferment. And then when it ferments, it kind of like your cilia becomes weak, and it starts to attack, you know, the inner lining of your digestive tract or whatever like that. And that's how you get, you know, ulcers and stuff like that. And you start to have these different issues like heartburn, gas, bloating, you know, you name it, you know, with the gut issues. And the thing is like, a lot of people don't understand, like, what I found is that a lot of the issues that we have with our digestive system today is directly related to gluten.
Right.
But a lot of people, you know, they don't know that. I've been through all the tests. I've been through the GI, the upper GIs, and the colonoscopies and all that stuff. And nobody can ever tell me nothing. I've been on to all the antacids and all that stuff. Nobody can tell me that. I still felt like crap. You know what I mean?
And
so
you don't have to have celiac in order to be intolerant. That right? You don't have to have celiac disease.
No.
Gluten is okay.
No. It's kind of like an allergy. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's kind of like a gluten allergy in a sense. You know what I mean? Like, it'll affect you, but you don't.
It almost feels like it doesn't, you know, certain systems are not able to break it down the way another person's system might.
Yeah.
Well, celiac is at the top of the chain. You borrow holes in your gut, you get leaky gut, it goes through the blood system, it can create colon cancer, and all types of other things that you don't want. And the thing about gluten intolerance, even with the intolerance, and this is what I tell parents all the time when they tell me, well, I did the diet with my child, it can have an opiate effect on the body. Well, I did it, but I didn't see anything after a week or two. Well, unlike dairy, which takes only a week to 10 days to get out of the gut, gluten can take up to 6 to 8 months. Because that's what Zahir just said, right? Glues those hairs together, it ferments in those pockets, and it borrows those holes right there. So this is the area you're trying to heal, and that's why it can take so long to get out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a silent killer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because everything, and what's crazy is it's not just in food. You know that well, my wife, she's homeschooling my son now, and probably, you know, from here on, but in school you have to make so many adjustments for your kids with that. So because he has it too. He has the sensitivity too.
Okay.
And he's gluten free. We're both gluten free. My wife can tolerate it, but it's in so many products that you have no idea. Like, it's in Play-Doh.
It's in Elmer's glue too.
Yeah, so we have to get like a special Play-Doh for him to play in school with the kids, so he won't feel like he's left out.
Oh, really? So it bothers him even to handle it, even if he's not eating it?
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, because you got to realize you're touching your face, your mouth, your eyes, your ears, your nose.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Your skin is an open pore.
Right.
So anything you touch with your hands, you get on your skin, it's going straight into your system.
Exactly.
I had to do all of that.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean,
it's in lotion. I mean, it's in face creams. It is unbelievable where you find gluten.
Right. And then they hide it by calling it something else sometimes. You got to be careful. You know what I mean? Some people are more sensitive than others. You know what I mean? Like with the Dr. Sebi diet, right? A lot of people who can't, you know, who can't like deal with the traditional gluten, they can still, like, they can eat like the ancient grains and still be okay. I can't do that.
Wow.
I gotta completely leave it alone.
Salt and all of that stuff.
I'm that sensitive to it.
So what does the Dr. Sebi's diet look like for you?
As far as what? The gluten?
Right. Like, what do you eat since you can't have like that kind of stuff?
I just stay away from that stuff, like those type of grains. There's also a ancient grain that a lot of Indians use in food called injera. I don't know if you ever heard that.
I've heard of it,
Ethiopians.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And they use teff, which is another grain. So I would eat that instead of,
Okay.
I have to just adjust
Yeah.
my diet to how I feel, what makes me feel better, because that, man, when I eat that, I notice it right away. I just get bloated and I get constipated, and my stomach starts turning in knots, and there's times where I don't even want to leave the house, and there's times where I don't even realize that I'm being affected by it. Like I may not know that I ingested it somehow.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
I've heard people call it gluten.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when you're in gluten, when you've come into contact with it and right away that somehow you've taken gluten into your system, because you immediately begin to feel the effects of it.
Right. Yeah.
And there's just not enough research on it anyway.
No.
We get these ulcers and they're always talking about, well, that ulcer came from stress. Are you kidding me? Life is stressful. How do we not know that those holes were bored in there from a gluten intolerance?
Right.
But no one's talking about that. And yet I've seen people who've had ulcers get off of gluten, and within 3 to 6 months, they're feeling better. And then 8 months down the road, they're telling me, oh, I feel completely healed. That ulcer's gone. I don't have H. pylori anymore.
Right.
Well, how can that be just from a dietary change if it was stress? So there's so much about this that we're not even being told, and we don't even know.
There's not enough studies on it. I mean, I remember when I first started, I even forgot how I found out about it. It might have been on the internet or something like that. And I started looking into it. And at that time, like, I don't know what, I'm in Georgia now, but they have Kroger's and they have Publix or whatever like that. But in Jersey, oh yeah, somebody, ShopRite.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You go to ShopRite and there was no aisle for gluten-free. You know what I'm saying? Now today, you have a whole aisle of gluten-free. So they're starting to put more products out there. But the issue is, when you follow an alkaline diet, a lot of the stuff is still processed.
Right.
So it's kind of like you're taking the lesser of the two evils. I don't know. It's just.
Well, I didn't even know about Dr. Sebi all those years ago, because my kids were, my daughter that just graduated.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a stepdaughter who was diagnosed with celiac at 14.
Wow.
And at the time, I was pregnant with my 22-year-old. And so I have my daughter, and the doctor from Children's Hospital, she calls and she says this child has celiac. All of the other family members get tested because they've all got Crohn's disease. You name it, they've got all kind of gut issues, my husband's side. So they all either came up with the sensitivity or they came up with celiac. So my family's been gluten-free from the very beginning. But back then, the only thing that I could find as she got older and then the twins got older was the selected carbohydrate diet, because there was no information out. I mean, I cooked for years. You couldn't go in a restaurant. You couldn't, and I'm talking about 20 years ago, you couldn't buy anything out of the store.
Right.
And Aisha probably can relate to this with a 20-year-old son. There was nothing out there. Now you can go anywhere. They've got all this convenience food. You can order things gluten-free. These are things that we didn't even have back then. But is the convenience always good? I mean, how does it relate when you're using all these other processed foods and
high starch,
nuts for grains, for flour base?
Right. Yeah. I mean,
and it's really not that difficult to make the transition, because like you said, Dr. Ely, that there are a lot of foods right now that are labeled gluten-free. You know, there are a lot of other options and stuff that are out there, but the hardest part is to get that diagnosis, you know, because a lot of times it's just, you know, they say that it's something else, and it's really hard. Even some people that actually do have celiac don't actually come back as being celiac, you know. So like in my son's case, they had told him that he had to actually continue eating the gluten food in order for the test to even be
I was told the same thing.
come back accurate, because pulling away anything would change, you know, whether the test was positive, would be positive or negative. So so just imagine how difficult it is to receive a diagnosis if it really is based off of the last time that you actually had gluten.
I'm gonna tell you what happened to me. Pretty much that's what happened. Like, I knew, like, when I was researching it and I was looking at all the symptoms and stuff like that, I was like, this sounds like something I have, right? So then what I did was I took myself off of it myself. I kind of like self-diagnosed myself. So I took myself off of this, and I started to feel better, right? So then I said, all right, and me and my wife would research. She's a great researcher. So she found some stuff, and she was like, well, they have a blood test that you can take. So I called St. Barnabas, right, Samaya? Mm-hmm. And I went up there to get a blood test, right? So when I got the blood test, they said, well, you come back negative celiac. But they said the reason why you probably came back negative is because there's no antibodies in your system now, because you stopped so long ago from ingesting it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So they were like, well, in order to get, you know, an accurate reading, you would have to go back eating gluten. And I was like, you know what? I'm not doing that. I'm not putting myself through this torture again. So I just, you know, either you know, I have celiac or I'm sensitive to it. It doesn't matter. I just know that it doesn't need to be in my body.
Right.
So I just completely just stopped it, and that's it. And the thing, what I want to say is also that's very important with gluten sensitivity or celiac disease is, like we were saying, like 20 years ago, you didn't have all this gluten-free stuff, right? Mm-mm. Then now you have restaurants, you go out to eat, right? They have a gluten-free menu, right? But then a lot of times, a lot of restaurants, you may get cross-contaminated.
That's right.
You use the same equipment to cook the stuff.
Yes.
You know, the gluten-free stuff with the stuff that has gluten in it. You know what I mean?
That's true. And I will say this, you have to be very careful with that, because I know with my kids, we've had incidences of cross-contamination, and I've had sick kids for 2 to 3 weeks after.
Yeah.
So that'll give you a pretty good idea if you're just sensitive to it or you truly have celiacs.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
You've got to be very careful with that. The problem that we have, we used to be an ancient grain, but to grow it fast and to grow it quick, we no longer have that ancient grain. This is a hybrid.
Right.
And all hybrids, Dr. Sebi said that, they're no good. It's not stuff we should even be eating. Right. And that is the problem now with the wheat, the quality of the wheat we have.
Right.
And a lot of the rye.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is we had touched on it a little, you know, off camera, but with my son, you know, or with kids who have autism, right?
Right.
A lot of that, a lot of the autism has to do with the gut. So
what a second brain is.
Gluten directly affects kids with autism. So
you give it to them, and you might as well give them a joint, because they have a serious opiate effect. Yeah. It's like shooting them up with heroin. And I've seen it over and over as I've educated these kids, even with my own son. If my son gets any cross-contamination, something happens to his brain. And that is something that doesn't go away. I've always said, if a scientist came up with a way to heal the guts of many of these children diagnosed with autism, they would recover them.
Right.
Heal the gut, you heal the child. But we don't have that. So we are the ones on this rigid diet.
Because I've heard that also has the same effect with children that have ADHD. It's the same situation with the gut.
Same stuff.
I mean, these are all neurological issues.
It's the same stuff. Yeah, and that, you know, that's the basis of Dr. Sebi's diet. He says that all disease, all illness starts in your gut.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? So pretty much anything that we suffer from starts in your gut. Is what you're eating.
And you know that's very true, because even being diagnosed with lupus and Sjogren's, when I was on a smoothie diet, the flare-up that I was having was gone. No issues. I didn't really need any medication or anything like that. I didn't have any of the inflammation. A lot of the symptoms went away. No gut issues. And as soon as I kind of went off of the smoothies and decided to start incorporating a lot of the other foods back into my diet, I started immediately noticing, you know, getting a lot of those symptoms back again.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we are what we eat, and it's the same thing with cancer. I've discovered on this journey, a lot of things you consider that are healthy, they're not when you're trying to overcome disease. And it's all about how the body detoxifies. Someone told me that a majority of people of African ancestry and Africans, they can't have gluten. They really can't tolerate it. And especially if you're an O-type blood, O positive or O negative.
That's me.
Gluten really does affect the body.
And lactose.
That's right, and lactose.
And that's difficult when you look at the pyramid of what they say we should eat, right? I mean, I know that that's been looked at several times, but, you know, breads and milks and stuff like that is just not the way to go.
That's the sad diet, though. You know what I mean?
It really is.
And I knew from American diet.
In school,
no, it is really sad.
They still give a lot of that stuff in school to children, you know, and you have children, like you said, autism, ADHD. How many children in our community have these type of learning disabilities and have IEPs, and they're having these type of foods for lunch?
Right.
Just to go back to class and have, you know, like you said, when you have the gluten, you notice right away. So your child has the lunch, they don't know that they have the gluten sensitivity. They have bread and milk and stuff like that for lunch, and then go back to class and wonder why the rest of the day is not productive.
Right.
I always had to prepare lunch. We never bought the school lunch. And then my daughter's first semester at college in Philadelphia, she got so sick with the cross-contamination, and they didn't want to give me my money back. But what I did, before I sent her, I had it put in her records. I sent a medical letter from her doctor saying that she has celiac disease and she cannot have gluten. So they told me, no, you can't have a refund. We can't move her to a dorm with a full kitchen in it. I said, well, you need to look in her records. I gave you that letter before she started. You have it. I want a full refund. And I want her moved to a kitchen because now she needs to cook. And they, you know, they went and discussed it and refunded me my money.
Oh, that was
but
good.
I will say this, we have to be so diligent with our kids, because even Lou, who's in school, Lou got cross-contamination. These schools are saying, well, we can do the gluten-free diet. They cannot. So she's cooking for herself at college now. They can't do it. Well, it was before this lockdown, but they can't do it. There's cross-contamination. Now, the only difference is Lou's at Loyola, and she has a meal plan at Tulane. So what Tulane did, because of so much cross-contamination, they now have a completely separate gluten-free kitchen. So only if you have celiacs can you come into that kitchen. They won't even let you in if you just have an intolerance, because they want to make sure that the people who eat there are completely gluten-free.
Wow.
And I think that's where it's going to have to go, because so many people have this intolerance.
And that's the thing. A lot of people are getting diagnosed with this. That's why you see the shelves filling up now in the supermarkets, and they're having whole aisles of gluten-free stuff. You know, because we have it. We have the breads, we have the pizza. Because my son, he's only 7. He's not completely aligned because, you know, he's picky.
You have to feed him, especially a picky eater.
Yeah.
That's right.
He's always been like that, you know, especially, you know, on the spectrum and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, and then in school, like you were saying, like we make his lunch, you know what I mean? He brings his lunch to school, and, you know, depending on what school system you're in, if the school system isn't that good, they'll wind up giving your kid something that he ain't supposed to have. You know, and he, you know, he's too young to really speak up for himself to say, oh no, I'm not supposed to have that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So,
but I will tell you this though, we should listen to children, because I remember when I was young, I was back in the days when the milkman used to deliver the milk in glass, and it was raw milk, so he could leave it out. It wasn't refrigerated. You leave it on the back stoop, and your mother would pick it up when she picked you up from school and bring it in. But the minute we went to pasteurized milk, I got so sick. First of all, I didn't like the smell of it. I told my mother I didn't want it. She said, well, I'll fix your cereal. You grow up poor, you got to eat it.
Right.
And I got so sick from it that I never drank milk again. I can't stand the smell of it.
Yeah.
So I knew back then I wasn't supposed to have it. And if you look at these kids, even those who are on the spectrum, if you notice, the first food that they'll go to when they develop this picky eating habit, they go to French fries. Why is that? Because potatoes are soft on the gut. They all like French fries. Soft on the gut. And we think that is part of their disability. No, it's not. It's part of gut health. They hurt. We need to listen to our children and follow their lead, even if they're nonverbal. And I've seen it over and over and over again. My son is so picky, but I can give him as many vegetables and fruit that I want in 2 smoothies a day, and he'll drink it.
Oh, that's good.
He'll ask for it because it makes him feel good.
Right.
But he won't. He'll tell you. Developmentally, he's 8, but he can tell me a lot of things, and he'll tell me, "Oh no, that's got gluten in it. I'm not eating that." Because when he started talking at 13 was when he was able to start telling me, he'd push it back, no.
Right.
But when he started talking in full sentences, he started telling me, Mommy, I remember when that made my tummy hurt.
Right.
Wow.
So they do understand.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that we start listening more and listen to ourselves. I mean, even if you think back as a child on certain things, you can think back and say, you know what? Instinctively, as a child, I knew that wasn't good for me.
Right.
But no one else did. So there is a way to just gauge some of this. And I'm going to tell you, unless we can get ancient seeds, we can truly get some true heirloom seeds, I will say probably no one should take the risk and eat gluten. Some people can't tolerate it, which is true. But I've watched people who thought they could tolerate gluten. I've watched it years down the road. And these people come up with pancreatic, colon cancer. And, you know, they'll tell you, well, that's not a gluten intolerance.
Right.
I beg to differ.
No, I definitely agree with that. A lot of people don't, I mean, I'm sure the symptoms can be very, very mild, but I doubt that with what they're doing to wheat and barley and rye, things that you're stating, I highly doubt that anybody could really tolerate the type of gluten that we're receiving right now on a daily level that, you know, I'm sure everybody's feeling some type of side effect of it.
Right. And we have to understand that, you know, they're just trying to mass produce this stuff because they already feel like there's too many people on the planet, you know, for the amount of food that, you know, that's available.
Well, even they spray with glyphosates. Before harvest, everything's sprayed with glyphosate, Roundup. That's destroying gut health. It's causing a lot of cancer. And I think I told you, Aisha and Samaya, when I wanted to pilgrimage through the Amish communities. I stayed a week out in where the Amish farms are in Pennsylvania because I wanted to see for myself beautiful farms, ancient way of growing and harvesting food. Right across the highway, conventional crops. I watched the crop dusters come down, shoo, spray the conventional crops, and I saw the wind blow it over to the organic foods. So you have to ask yourself, do we really have true organic food if they're not being grown on a really small farm and protected from huge industrial farming? Do we really have it? Because we look at Remember all of the scare we got with the spinach and the romaine lettuce with E. coli. How could that be if you've got these organic vegetables that you're growing?
Exactly.
It's runoff from these farm animals. I mean, you can't even trust the water that it's being grown with. So we do have to ask ourselves these questions. And without gut health, are we truly healthy?
Right.
Even Zahir, I'm sure you can attest to this, Zahir. Even with following Dr. Sebi's protocol, if you're not looking at good food, healthy foods that is grown sustainably, organically, and herbs the same way, are you really going to maintain health, or are you going to get better?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, man, it's serious, you know?
We have to know where our food comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, the thing is like one of the things that I tell people in this group. I mean, I've been doing this group for over 5 years now. You know, I learned a lot from a lot of different people, and one of the best things you could do is grow your own food.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Or like you said, the heirloom seeds or whatever. Like I have a link, and I'll share it with you guys. There's a list of like hundreds of companies that have or sell heirloom seeds. You know what I'm saying? I'm not sure if they have like the traditional wheats and stuff like that, because I'm not even sure exactly where they grow. The thing is with Dr. Sebi's protocol, right? He says like there are certain foods like that grow in certain geographical regions. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if I can get a hold of spelt, you know, and grow spelt in my backyard. That may be something that grows in Egypt.
Right.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So then that poses another issue with trying to get these traditional wheats to grow, because then you don't know if they're able to be imported. You see what I'm saying? Like Dr. Sebi's, his nutritional guide is based off of food that we have access to.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? There's so many other alkaline herbs and things going out here infinitely that we don't know about. But there's things that he even talked about that we can't even get access to.
Yeah, right.
Not in this country.
Mm-hmm.
They won't allow it. And they will lock you up for it, kind of thing.
Really?
That's how serious it is. Oh, yes.
I know like marijuana, but what else is there?
I forget. He didn't really talk a whole lot about like herbs that we don't have access to. But every now and then he would mention certain things.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But I can't I can't remember off the top of my head because it's been a while. I saw a lot of these videos a long time ago, and a lot of these videos aren't even available on the internet anymore. They took a lot of them.
Well, I will say this, though. We can just take the example from this lockdown, stay-at-home mandate. So we were able to go in the large stores like Walmart and Target and what have you. We were able to go in these stores and buy food, but they closed off the seed aisle. So if you wanted to go buy seeds to grow food, you couldn't go buy them because that wasn't considered essential.
Essential, right.
When
we come across spring.
Growing food is not essential. Buying seeds to grow food is not essential.
And on top of that, they have never, ever mentioned, well, first of all, I don't look at the news a lot. Every now and then I'll look at the news just to see where we at now. Okay? But anytime that I look at the news, have you ever heard anybody talk about building their immune system? Any of the doctors? Any of the professionals? Have you heard anybody, just talk about anything other than, what's going on right now?
That's what I was telling my mom.
Other issues. Do they talk about gluten? No. You know what I mean?
They don't talk.
That a fever can be good.
Any type of steps that you can take to prepare yourself to deal with a virus, even if it's a small percentage, just to prepare your body to be able to handle something like that. They're not doing anything to prepare a person for dealing with stuff like that. They just say, oh, if you have premorbid health conditions, or if you're at a certain age, stay in the house.
Right.
But that's not even realistic, you know.
And when they talked about the vitamin C, they quickly shut that one down.
Yes, that's
the high dose IVs of vitamin C that was curing patients of COVID. They quickly shut that one right down. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And even that's like, you know, even like they may help you, like, but a lot of times, like even Dr. Sebi talks about it, is we don't really deal with vitamins. We deal with minerals. You know what I'm saying? And that made like you said, it probably helped a lot of people, but even that they shut that down.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
so YouTube said they take videos down if somebody made a video telling people to take vitamin C, which I find really interesting. Like, wow. So they don't
in a republic
hear about it.
Well, as a republic with the constitutional right to free speech,
right?
And yet they're taking it down.
You know what happened to me with my channel?
What?
I did a video. I don't know if you guys been to my channel, but I did a video on doing steam therapy with the facial steamer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They didn't warn me, nothing. They just pretty much just took it down.
They took it down?
Yeah.
Wow, was that during this crisis or before? Wow. And you know that works. The steam therapy works.
Wow. I do it every day. I do it with oregano, and I do it with olive leaf.
What do you mean?
I mean, you could do it with, you know, different herbs, but you want to do it with herbs that are kind of like spicy.
So what do you mean facial steamer? You have a facial steamer? Because I know we'd use the pot, and
you can do it that way too.
It sounds nicer.
Yeah.
It sounds.
You know how you guys have, you know, you women have the facial spa, right?
Right.
Use that.
Ah.
The steamer. You can go right on Amazon.
Yeah, I've seen.
Vicks makes one. Hold on a second. Oh, it's not in here. I
you
took
can
it out
do it the old-fashioned way. Just take a towel across the pot.
Right.
You do that too?
Or you could
do it
buy a facial steamer, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You don't want to spend money on it. Just throw the towel across the pot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And they took it down.
They took my video down because I think it had, because I didn't specifically talk about it. I used the word virus.
Mm. That was it.
And they took it down.
It's the trigger word.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And what was their reasoning? Do they have YouTube has to give you a reason, right?
I think that was the reason. Really? You know what? I gotta look at. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm saying really. I don't know why I'm seeming surprised.
Right.
Exactly. And we still have movies up, and this is like my pet peeve, right? You got a certain movie company, well, streaming company, right, that has a movie about teens committing suicide. And when that started streaming, the teen suicide rate went up, and it is still streaming.
Right. They didn't take that
down. So this is not about life. This is not about saving lives or anything.
No.
There's nothing to do with that.
Anytime you want to heal yourself, you want to empower yourself over your body, which you have sovereignty over, there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
There's a problem.
Yep, they took it down. I you know what? I'll find it later. I don't want to.
Yeah. Wow. So that's the world. Well, you know what? It's going to backfire because we're going to find another platform. You know what I mean? There was a such thing as MySpace.
Yeah.
Who goes there now?
Right.
So it's going to happen when you start censoring. It's going to go too far because who decides what the line is?
Right.
The line is one way today, and tomorrow it's going to be another line. Right? Then another line the next. After a while, if I can't talk, if I can't say what I want to say, I'm going to go where I can.
Right. That's
we're still getting the word out no matter how much they want to keep us from doing it.
This is the information age, so you can't stop.
Yeah, I mean, you can't.
Exactly. The cat is out the bag.
Yeah. And then there's so many of us
So many
not just
awake
us, but you know what I'm
right.
saying. It's public knowledge. This is public knowledge. This is the power of the internet. Like I don't understand why or how they think they're gonna control that unless they just completely shut the internet down. They
So
can't
many
do
of
that.
us are awake too, and we're taking back our own health. We see what has happened.
Right.
We're taking our health back into our own hands.
I always say, nature trumps all. I don't care.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care what happens. Nature is gonna always trump all. I don't care how artificial. I don't care. It's just that's nature. You'll never win against nature.
No, and even if they take the internet down, our ancestors used to beat the drums over and still they had the internet then. So you cannot keep people down, like good people too. They said you can't keep a good man down.
Yeah.
Not really. You can slow us down, but you're not gonna stop. You're not gonna stop.
I think the most important thing for us now going forward is to recognize just how wrong all of the so-called experts were when it comes to diet and health, when they started changing how we decided to eat and what we decided to eat, and all the convenience foods that started to pour in the 60s, mid to late 60s. It's been an experiment that has gone horribly wrong. You look at old videos of Soul Train,
yeah,
you didn't see one fat black.
That's true.
And I'm telling you, when I grew up, I never saw anybody overweight. The only folk that were overweight were our grandmothers. They were a little overweight from having so many children and doing all the cooking.
Yeah.
But other than that, you didn't see it.
Right.
And there was a reason for that. Now babies are born overweight.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it keeps going on because some of this food, I truly believe, and I don't know this to be true, because of the chemicals that are laced in those foods, they have the ability to alter our DNA and how it functions. And I think I remember telling you guys about the lady who told me that she did this experiment on goats. And how she did that experiment on goats. One set of goats were completely vaccine free. One set was on the relaxed schedule. And then the other set got the full CDC schedule. And she said it literally took 2 generations of not vaccinating to get a herd of goats that appeared to be healthy again, from the fully vaccinated, from the partial vaccinated, while the unvaccinated thrived.
I believe it.
Wow.
So what I'm saying is this, not to bring it, the vaccine issue in, but even when we're talking about food, I think when you start to give the body good, clean food that's free of glyphosates, pesticides, fertilizers, that are not grown from GMO seeds, your body can replenish itself. And as women go forward having children, eating this way, you're going to have healthier children come into the world. You can still feed a child to be healthier. However, when you get such gut damage as we have with these kids with autism and some of these learning disabilities, we can maintain health in these children by feeding them healthy and eliminating these foods that don't agree with them. But it has been my experience. Honestly, I've never seen a gut healed yet. And it could be somebody out here. I'd be glad if somebody contacts me and say, you know what? I healed my child of that gluten intolerance. Their gut is healthy, no more leaky gut. They can eat whatever they want. I'd love to see that, but I haven't seen it yet. So we have to treat that as though we treat a condition like lupus, Sjogren's, diabetes, and understand that it will take this for the rest of your life going forward. And we all should adopt that plan because we are what we eat.
Right.
And we shouldn't be living to eat. We have to eat to live. And since we are what we eat, we have to make sure we put in the right foods in our bodies. I've learned that lesson with my my cancer diagnosis. And then I even thought, I ate right. I took herbs. I slipped a little bit. And then when I went into congestive heart failure, I went on another diet, which got me better. I went ketogenic. It really got me better. But it is not the right diet if you're dealing with cancer. So we have to look at our conditions and look at our body type, our blood type, and determine what's best for us. But I will say this, in all of the healing protocols that I've seen, gluten is not a part of that.
Right.
And there has to be a reason for that. So we need to look at that, and going forward, no matter what you decide to do, look into the ill effects of gluten and why we have those effects according to how our food is grown right now and the seeds that are used.
Yeah, and one thing I want to say, I mean, you know, as adults, right? We can. I'm on my 14th day of my fast, right? I'm not eating, and
You're
I'm
looking
just
good too. Like I can see
thank
the
you.
difference from the last time you were here.
Yeah, I lost. My wife lost 12 pounds. I think I lost 10.
Wow.
Yeah, so I lost 10 pounds. I feel pretty good. You know, I have little hiccups here and there because I do suffer from digestive issues due to gluten or whatever. But, you know, as adults, I think that fasting is definitely a way to go. You know what I mean? Because you're staying away from those foods that irritate your gut and stuff like that. You're giving your gut time to regenerate itself and heal itself. So that's why I'm on this fast now. I'm on, you know, this is my 14th day, but I'm going for 30. At first I said I was going to do 3. Yeah. First I said I was going to do 3. Then if I said I did 3, then I'll do 7. If I do 7, I'm going for a month. And my wife is right along with me, you know? So, yeah, I mean, as kids, especially, you know, with autism and all these, you know, different illnesses, it's harder for them because you can't put them on a fast. You know, you really can't detox their colon. Yeah. Now, what I found out today is ironic that I'm talking about this, is that I found out, and I was looking at before I came on with you guys, I was looking at a video on Instagram on a live that Dr. Sebi's son did. Now, you know, he's learned a lot about the herbs from Dr. Sebi since he was, you know, a little boy. And now he's taken over pretty much teaching a lot of people about herbs. So if you get the chance, just follow him on Instagram or, you know, he has a website where he's,
What's his name?
His name is Victor.
Okay.
Victor. And
what is his Instagram? How do we find him?
Dr. Sebi's son.
Oh, that's what
that's what he calls himself?
Yeah, at Dr. Sebi's son. Yes.
Okay.
And yeah, so he does a lot of times he does a lot of Q&As where people are asking him questions about you know, different things or whatever. And somebody had asked him, like, can you detox a child? And pretty much like asking them how to do it. Like me, like I took a colon cleanse last night, which is Cascara Sagrada, which is good because it cleans out, it gets in those pockets inside your digestive tract and takes out all that gunk. And they asked, well, can I give a child that pretty much? Can I do it 3 times a day? And pretty much what he said is just take 1 pill. Give it, instead of taking 3 pills, you get, well, capsules, and the veggie caps, and you give the child 1 veggie cap. So that'll help, you know, clean their colon out, stuff like that. From the gluten that's sitting in the pockets and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, of course, you got to be careful. I just found this out, just like I said, right before I got on with you guys. So, got to look into it a little bit more. But, yeah.
And anybody should do your own due diligence, do your research.
Right.
You know, we're here to share our journeys with you, not to give you medical advice, but, you know, just hearing other people's journeys can help facilitate your own. But you have to do your own research. And I'm talking to the audience now.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a herbalist. I'm not a medical practitioner.
Right, and neither are we, but we are sharing our journey with you.
Right.
You know, So take it for what it's worth and do your research, because the information is out there. There are a lot of good books out there. There are a lot of good channels and
Right.
even your group. Say the name of your group again.
Dr. Sebi Electric Alkaline Living.
Okay.
And
A lot of good
Facebook.
information in that group. So much inspiration in that group.
It's
You
good.
know? Yeah, it is. And you guys stay true to what Dr. Sebi actually taught, right? Like I see some people like, oh, well, you know, I want to be able to recommend, you know, something that he doesn't recommend. But I'm like, well, how do you stay true to it? Right? I mean, the mission of your group is to stay true to
that's pretty
Dr.
much
Sebi taught.
I mean, that's pretty much it. We just try to, I mean, the thing is like if you all right, if you don't come into our group and you want to learn about Dr. Sebi, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can go to his website. You can see what kind of herbs that he has in his products and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. You can download his nutritional guide straight from his website, right? Mm-hmm. If you don't go there, he has an office in LA, okay, that you can go to. When you go into that office, they're not going to recommend you anything that's not on his list or in his products. Right. So that's pretty much what we try to stick to. Mm-hmm. So it's tough. You know what I mean? It's tough being an administrator of this group because we're trying to constantly stay on track and stay true to what he taught. Right. You know what I'm saying? It's best, you know, to our knowledge. Of course, we don't know everything, but, you know, what we do know and what's public knowledge is there. You know what I'm saying? And that's all we try to do is stay true to. But you got a lot of people who give us strife and they want to go back and forth with it. And this is not a group where we're going to sit here and argue and debate with you. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? We're teaching you how he taught it. And that's it.
Staying true, your mission is to stay true to what he taught. And I think people just need to understand that.
And if you do something outside of that, you know, that's no problem with me. That's no skin off my back. Mm-hmm. Just respect that when you come, that's like me coming to your house, right? And you have rules and there's certain things you do in your house. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to come in your house and disrespect your house. I'm going to say, okay, what are these rules? Or you're going to tell me the rules. Take your shoes off before you enter the house. I'm not just going to walk in your house with shoes on. Right. It's the same concept.
Same concept.
But we don't.
I think it's important too for people to understand that nobody combines all of these diets or eating plans. No. You have to be. I remember when I did selected carbohydrate. I did selected carbohydrate for 5 years, and it was tough because I had to cook 3 meals a day. The only reason why I didn't go back to it once I ended up displaced from Katrina, because I was displaced for nearly 2 years. It was too hard to do.
Oh, wow.
And so I moved on to something else. But when you're doing these eating protocols, you're not mixing these protocols. And what we're talking about today, we're talking about how do we stay true to Dr. Sebi's protocol while maintaining a gluten-free lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. And you can.
And you can.
That's the thing. Like, pretty much, you know, there's a lot of diets or philosophies or, you know, methods that's out there. But thing that would attract me to him, because I've tried different things. I've tried different herbalists and stuff like that have different protocols. But when he started talking about dealing with plants or herbs that came with the planet, mm-hmm. Okay, mm-hmm. That directly takes me to the foundation. And I know that I want to listen to a lot more of what he's talking about. If he's talking about taking it and then you're talking about acidic and alkaline. I didn't need anything else. Mm-hmm. Right. You know what I'm saying? Because I tried so many different diets and things because I've been suffering from this. It might have been all my life, but I really didn't. It really didn't start affecting me till like the early 90s. And I've been dealing with this for a long time. And mm-hmm. nothing that I've done has ever really worked for me. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So, and then when we talking about gluten, like, I had no idea, like, you know what I mean? Like, what gluten was back then. But now I do.
Right. And you know
You
what
know?
I wonder too, like when you're younger, when your body sends this signal, it's probably not as loud as it gets as you get older, right? So after it whispers to you, don't eat that, and you ain't paying it no mind. Now it starts to go upside your head, you know, or punch you in the gut because you're gonna listen to that, right?
Right, right.
So, you know, that's what I'm thinking. Like a lot of this gluten intolerance probably really didn't just come out of anywhere. Between them changing the wheat, right?
Yeah.
And feeding us wheat that wasn't in our ancestral diet and it didn't exist on the planet.
Right.
And then we ate it for a while when our bodies whispered and whispered, hey, you know, probably didn't feel so great afterwards, but, you know, it wasn't loud enough to really get your attention,
Yeah.
you know? And
Right.
then one day you got punched in the gut and was like, what the heck is that?
That's what happened to me. I was drinking a Snapple. I think it was it was a grape. It was the grape aid. I was drinking that one day, and I drank it, and then I got this really bad heartburn, and it was like not. I'm not saying this. Of course, this isn't gluten, but this is what made me go, something ain't right. Like it would come up, and it was like it felt like hot. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then I knew something was wrong, and that's when I kind of like started on my journey. But I didn't find out until Dr. Sebi till almost 20-something years probably later.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So I've been on this journey for a long time trying to heal my gut.
And a lot of people don't understand that when you have heartburn, you have acid reflux, you've got intestinal issues, you really need to be looking at what you are consuming and how you're consuming it instead of taking all of these different types of drugs. I mean, look what Zantac, they're saying about it, is giving so many people cancer.
I was on it.
Right, digestive enzymes, which don't work. We've tried, I know my years with this movement, this whole autism movement, enzyme after enzyme after enzyme for these kids, not for them to eat gluten, but for their gut to feel better no matter what they're eating, and it doesn't work. It does not work. You have to get to the basis of what works best for this child, what needs to be eliminated. And even for an adult, we need to be looking at that too. What works best? What needs to be eliminated? What can we add from the earth, like an herb? That's something that's natural, or a different way to cook food to make it better for us so that we can tolerate it or the child can tolerate it.
Right.
We have to start thinking about it differently. There's no quick fix pill out here so that you can tolerate the food that you shouldn't be eating.
Right, right.
That's the hard part.
Well, you know, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the hard part is just, you know, people staying away from the things. They have a hard time letting go of things that they're used to. You know what I'm saying? And
it is hard. It's hard.
It's very hard. It's hard. It was hard for me. Right. You know what I mean? I ain't gonna lie. Right. You know what I mean? I'm not this perfect human being. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean that's it. It's just hard. We've been conditioned over years and years and years, and you know, and then it's not even that. It's the fact that life is so fast now. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Like back in the day, our ancestors, we took the time to go hunt for our food, or not to say hunt, but you know what I'm saying? Go pick our food off of trees and stuff, and garden and stuff like that, and get it from scratch and actually cook it. Now everything's so fast and everything's so processed that, you know what I mean? It's too much work for people nowadays. Right. You see what I'm saying? And I know that, and I see that because being in Dr. Sebi, you know, running this group, you know, a lot of people it's too much work, like, because you're doing everything pretty much from scratch. You know what I'm saying? Most of your food is pretty much made from scratch. So
I did it for years. I did it for years. It takes time, but you got to prep. I learned to prep. Right. I sure did, because I was running myself batty crazy. But once you learn to prep and you gotta, you know, learn how to prepare those meals, prepare them big enough. Yeah. And so you have some that you can freeze and put aside.
Yeah. That's
That's
key.
how you do it. That's key, because these people that I live with, they didn't like leftovers. I don't think to myself, I don't know. I gotta get my. I did not decide that I was gonna be a Betty Crocker.
Right.
That's not how I thought I would. That's not what I thought I'd be doing with my life once I grew up and became a woman. And this has got to go. So I learned to do it a little better. So this is what I tell families: prep your food. If you know that you're gonna prepare certain meals, let's say for instance you're gonna prepare greens or something. Prep it early, clean it all, chop it, do whatever you need to do, make enough of it, freeze some for next week. And that way you can miss some days of cooking.
And that's key you said that, because yesterday me and my wife went out, and she's been getting on me because she's like, we need to get a freezer. We need to get a deep freezer, right? So she showed me a couple of them, and I'm like, man, them things is kind of expensive, you know what I mean? So we went out to Lowe's, and she wanted some plants, you know, for the house. So we went out to Lowe's yesterday, and we got a freezer.
Ooh.
Best investment ever.
Yeah, a deep freezer. So she, you know, she has like kale and stuff like that, and like fruit and stuff like that. Put it right in the freezer today. She was so happy. She was like, "Oh my God, I forgot I got my freezer."
That a dehydrator too, right? Like,
yeah,
dehydrate a lot of stuff too.
Right. Yeah,
I'm learning.
Another good point. Yes. Yeah. Dried fruit and dried you know, vegetables and stuff like that. That's and then it lasts. You know what I mean? Once you
I buy bananas by the bulk, and I peel them, I quarter them, I put them in a Ziploc bag, I freeze them, I take a piece out. I do not have time to be making all of those smoothies or pressing fruit and vegetables for all of these people every day. So there's a way for us to do it, and I've learned how to do it smart.
Right, you have
That's over years, because I was wearing myself thin. I felt like if I had picked up another knife to chop anything after the first 6 months, I was going to hurt somebody in the house.
And that's you know what, that's one of the things with me. I'm very mathematical. So that's key what you said. It's like not only just the prep, but you have to figure out ways to make it easier for yourself. You know what I'm saying?
And a freezer is the best investment ever. I will tell anybody. I've told so many people before the COVID-19. I tell folk all the time, nope, go buy a freezer. I don't care if it looks like you grew up in the South with a freezer in your house along with the refrigerator. Get a freezer because you need it. It's the easiest thing ever. And it keeps a woman or man, whomever's doing all of the cooking, from consistently being over a stove. Because as I said, I had to prepare 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Wow. And I got so savvy with it until the 3rd day you got the leftovers that you had for dinner. On Monday, Wednesday, you got it for lunch.
And didn't even know, huh?
Didn't even know. I switched it up all the time.
Oh, that's cool. That is cool.
Yeah.
That's the way you can live sustainably as a working person, or as a mother or father who needs to prepare everything that your family's eating. Even a smoothie, because I'm sure Aisha would tell you, you buy all those convenient bags, unless you're going to Costco's getting a big bag, that adds up. That is expensive.
Yeah.
But it's not as expensive if you buy bags of the raw food that's already there. You go home, you wash it all really good, you chop it up, you bag it all together with your vegetables and your fruit in the same little Ziploc bag, throw it in the freezer, and then take it out every morning and dump it in. Much more convenient. And that's what I did back in the day. Now you can get the big bags, but back in the day, we didn't have big bags like that.
Oh, right.
Especially organic foods, you really didn't. Or going to the farmer's market, you're not going to get that. So you can prepare it yourself, and you still can. And it's better because you know the quantity that's in there, you know what you want to go in that particular smoothie, and you freeze enough of it, you just dump it. And turn it on with some coconut water or whatever you use.
Yeah. That's right. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So Zahir, tell us what a day of gluten-free Sebi lifestyle looks like for you. Like, what do you eat? What's breakfast like? Or I know you fasted now, so you're like, nothing.
In the morning, I pretty much just have a smoothie. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Have a smoothie. I see me because I'm affected. My gut is affected. I try to stay away from like the nuts and the grains and stuff like that. So pretty much
so you're
my
not
days.
doing the walnuts and okay.
Because they're hard to digest.
Mm.
They're too dense.
Right.
I noticed that also with nuts. So you're saying nuts are a lot harder.
Yeah, absolutely. They're hard to digest. I mean, you know, and I also notice like when I eat nuts or stuff like that, or heavy grains or stuff like that, even with the chickpeas, right? That's hard for me to digest, and I notice like my energy level just drops when I eat that stuff, because I feel like my body is really using that energy to try and break this down. You know what I'm saying? And it's almost, you know, it feels like you're getting the life sucked out of you. You know, there's times where I gotta just go lay down. Like I know that when I eat that, I know what's to come. So, you know, and like, you know,
right.
Like we talking about staying away from certain foods and stuff like that. Like even though I know it's good for me, I still have to stay away from certain stuff because I know how it affects me. And I, like I said, I'm not a perfect person, so sometimes I get the craving. I'm like, man, I want a chickpea patty, you know, with some kale or some tomato. Like I gotta stay away from onions. I can't eat onions.
Okay.
You know, right now, and this is why I'm on a fast, because I'm trying to heal my gut. I'm able to tolerate that kind of stuff. You know, I'm able to break down the grains and the ancient grains and stuff. You know, even the ancient gluten grains, the spelt and the kamut, because they make like this kamut cereal that looks like Smacks. Remember Smacks?
Yeah.
And sugar crisp.
Yeah. I've seen
that. They have a kamut cereal that tastes just like it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I can't really enjoy it. They have the pastas. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like spelt pastas and stuff like that. You know, I can't enjoy that really. You know what I mean? So you know, willfully one day I'll be able to enjoy those things. And they are water soluble glutens, you know. So yeah, I mean, pretty much my day is smoothies, fruits and vegetables. You know what I'm saying?
So what do you put in your smoothie?
I like mango. Mango is like my favorite fruit ever. Okay, so I'll put, you know, I'll just make a mango smoothie. I'll put like some coconut milk in it, a little bit of vanilla in it, some sea moss. Sea moss pretty much goes in all my smoothies and stuff, like in my teas. Like I'm drinking this tea here, so I'm drinking teas and stuff like that. One thing I noticed too on this fast, because I fasted before on water and almost died. I'll never do that again.
Tough water. The water fast is a tough fast.
That's probably the toughest fast. You know, you got to be careful. And that's one thing Dr. Sebi's son was talking about today. Like, you got to be careful with that. You got to be under some type of supervision or something like that. Yeah. But what I learned on this fast is that probably like the third or fourth day, my hunger, like for food, kind of like went away, right? And I explained, because I did a video or two on it. Matter of fact, they made me take one of my other videos down. But I noticed that my body is more so calling for minerals, more so than food, just being on this fast. Because I really, to be honest with you, I really don't really get that hungry. As long as I'm like consistent with drinking the water and teas and whatever like that. Because I first started off with a smoothie when I first started the fast. But now I just took the smoothie completely out. Now I'm just doing the water and the teas. You know what I mean? And I was drinking like coconut water or whatever like that. And I really don't get hungry. I know, and that's what I realized, that, you know, your body really doesn't need food. It needs the minerals. So I was saying to my wife, I said, I may even go down to eating one meal a day. You know what I'm saying? I may have a smoothie in the morning, like coming off this. Matter of fact, we're talking about going raw. we're gonna be doing raw.
Oh,
So
really?
so she's looking at a lot of different raw recipes now, and I'm gonna do this probably the smoothies in the morning, or I may not even do that. I may just do the tea and the water and stuff like that in the morning, and then lunchtime. And that's when I'll have my raw meal.
And that's when you're supposed to have your biggest meal anyway, right? And Sebi said this too, right? Like, isn't it supposed somewhere around lunch or somewhere in the middle of the day?
Like,
you know what? I don't know. You know what? He might have said that. I don't know.
I feel like he did, but don't quote me on it. But
I mean,
I feel like he did.
To me, logically, I would say that.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Because some people say breakfast. It's supposed to be your best.
They said that's when you break your fast, though. I think.
Right.
Breakfast is when you break your fast, so it shouldn't be so heavy. Mm-hmm. And definitely not before you go to bed. But I think I want to say also that I think it's supposed to be lunch is your biggest.
That's supposed to be the biggest meal.
Thing, but.
Yeah, because I've done intermittent fasting, and I was very successful with it. I loved it. I'd only eat one meal a day. Fasting? I've done intermittent fasting very successfully.
Me too.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
The biggest meal is lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
I felt like that. Yeah.
I would think so because I would think like if you're talking about eating dinner around 6 o'clock, 6:30, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're gonna be going to bed at like 8 or whatever, 8:30, you don't want a big meal going into resting. You actually start fasting around that time. Preparing your body to rest. One thing I noticed, and I don't know if it's because I am affected by a digestive issue, is that when I don't eat anything like heavy before going to bed, not right before, but like hours before I go to bed, when I wake up in the morning, I feel so energetic. Yeah, I feel so alive. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When I eat heavy stuff, like stuff with some substance to it, I don't wake up the same way.
Now, do you notice the difference with the digestive issues? Do you notice a difference depending on like how many meals you have a day? Like, do you notice more digestive issues if you have 3 meals a day versus 1? Because I know I've noticed the difference.
Yeah. You know what? The difference is the main difference to me is first of all feeling heavy.
Yes.
And then the gas and the bloating.
The bloating. I was going to say the bloating.
You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Especially because when you eat something, honestly, you're supposed to be going to the bathroom like not too long after that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So if you're eating 3 meals a day, right, and you only go to the bathroom 1 time a day, that means the rest of that is backed up in your system, causing all the bloating and the gas. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So mathematically, if you look at it like this, 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, that's 21 meals, and you only go to the bathroom 1 time a day, right? How many meals do you have backed up in you for the week?
That's true. That's a lot, too much.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think people really even understand how many times a day you should be going to the bathroom. How many times a week is normal, like what's healthy, what is supposed to be. Especially
some people don't even go every day.
Yeah, some people don't. I didn't used to. Sometimes I wouldn't go to the bathroom for like 2 or 3 days.
Wow.
Imagine the toxicity I was at.
You're supposed to go 20 minutes after a meal.
Right.
Wow.
After every meal, you're supposed to go to the bathroom 20 minutes out.
Exactly.
Wow.
But you know what? One of the culprits, I'm not going to say like the main, I would say it's the main culprit, but I can't say it's everything. It's gluten.
Yeah, I agree.
Stopping everything up.
If the glue is gluing your cilia together and not allowing your food to pass through your system so you can go to the bathroom every time.
That's right. Those little hairs not doing this. Yeah. Passing it out.
Oh, right.
You're not going to go to the bathroom.
It's backing up in your system.
How we love our bread, huh?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Oh, but you know what struck me when you were talking about your test earlier? You said that they weren't able to see the antibody. That's why, Aisha, you said that you have to be eating it in order for them to give you the positive test. But what struck me is antibodies, that's your immune system.
Right.
Which means your immune system is reacting
to
what you're eating.
Exactly.
Right? It's as if you're fighting a cold or something.
Right.
You're fighting some
Exactly.
pathogen, but you're
Oh
putting it in
man,
the mouth.
that's a great point. Yeah, that means that
Oh,
you're
it's true.
eating poison pretty much.
Right. And
Right.
your body is mobilizing to
Right.
fight what you're eating. That's deep.
Right, because the thing is with my son, not only did he have, which his doctor thought was very weird, because not only did he have an allergy to gluten, he was allergic to everything.
Right.
Eggs, fish, beef,
Right.
everything that he eats, he actually became allergic to.
Really?
Right.
And he just couldn't tolerate anything. His body, anytime he would eat something, his body would just attack it. You know, and I'm not sure if that was more of the leaky gut or the celiac or whatever it was. It had gotten so out of control that anytime he ate it, the body had built, I guess, antibodies against it,
Right.
and literally attacked it. Now, what the allergist has said, that the more he heals his gut, his body won't see it as something foreign and try to attack it. He'll be able to tolerate a lot of the foods more. But it was amazing, the list of things that he was allergic to. The allergist said, well, normally on blood tests, a lot of things come back as the person being allergic to. But when we do the actual skin test, it's not that many things. But when he did the skin test, it was just as many things as the blood test showed.
Wow.
I can tell you this. We see that a lot in autism with these kids now. I mean, they're allergic to everything because the gut's been so damaged and the skin's been damaged from atopic dermatitis.
Because my son also had auditory processing disorder.
Yeah.
So.
But there you go. He had an injury. He had an injury that went straight to the gut and went bam and damaged the gut. But the lucky thing now, what people have, you can take the blood test if you are eating gluten, because 20 years ago, you had to be scoped for them to tell you for certain if you had celiacs. They didn't just tell you from a blood test. They wanted to scope you, and they want you to eat enough gluten so that when they went in, they could see those little hairs doing, stuck together and see what the issue was. So we've made a lot of progress, but is it worth the risk?
Right. And I think one of the hardest parts, though, is that just receiving the diagnosis. And to me, that's with any health issue. It's so hard you have to have a doctor that is really going to say, put it all together and say, you know what? When do you notice that you have problems? Do you notice it after this? Because, I mean, a lot of people, like my son, he gets headaches. How else would you attribute something like that to processing gluten? You wouldn't. So unless you have somebody that's going to tie it together, or unless you're going to be able to notice, okay, this happened and that happened, then it's really hard to tell, so they have the tests out there, but a lot of people are getting misdiagnosed and not even told to look at these issues because they're not able to tie it together, and that goes back to being your own doctor and keeping track of what your body is doing and noticing, like we stated earlier, what feels good and what doesn't feel good. Whether it be what your child tells you or whether it be what you notice on your own, we have to pay attention to what our body is telling us.
Right.
Yeah, and one of the things you brought up about how, it affects other things, like you can't tolerate certain things. Like you say, your son can't tolerate eating beef or maybe chicken or fish. And the crazy part about it is if you think about what these animals eat, right?
Arsenic.
Right? Because they're eating grains.
Arsenic grains, though. They're preserved with arsenic, and they could even be so-called organic or free range. They give them these grains preserved with arsenic because that's how they keep it from molding. And then they feed it to these animals, and you're ingesting these animals. If that animal's not kosher, it's not fit to eat.
Right.
Or because the grains are not fit.
Right.
And that's why so many people now have allergies, like Aisha said, with her son, to meats and all of the things. We're hunter-gatherers. That's where our ancestors came from.
Yeah.
What did they have? They had meat and they had vegetables. And yet we've got children who can't even eat that, and some of us can't eat it.
Right.
Where's that?
I had to stop beef a long time ago. My digestive system,
Me too.
once I was diagnosed with the autoimmune issue, could not digest beef. Like instantly, I felt such a difference that I just literally, and the same thing with bread. You start to instantly feel the like your stomach, your digestive system just expand. And it's painful, almost to the point where it feels like it's being stretched beyond, what it should be stretched. And I cannot break down beef and bread, even though, I shouldn't eat it. Whenever I have, take it, I instantly feel it's such a difference in my digestive system.
So it's true, because I've had nausea over my course with healing myself from cancer. So I've gotten even organic saltine crackers, because that's the only thing I could hold down. And I developed so much mucus up in here. I mean, I just can't have the gluten at all. The mucus would be so heavy up in here until my ears would start itching and burning on the inside. And I would just start gagging from the amount of mucus that would start dripping down into my throat. And we're talking about organic soda crackers.
Right.
I mean, they're supposed to be made with baking soda, water, and and a grain. But I figured, okay, one of the times I decided, let me call the company and let me ask if the baking soda they're using is aluminum free, because I wanted to know that. So they told me yes. So then I attributed it to the gluten. I just can't have it, no matter how much, this helps.
I think this is what happens when food is produced by people who don't care about the people they are feeding, right? Because you're producing food, that's such an important thing, right? And that's sustaining people on the other end, but we have these big corporations who really don't care about.
And the store is filled with their food.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, that's something we really have to think about, like really sit back and take that one in. Imagine somebody brings you a plate of food and they don't care about you.
And I want to go back to this.
Food? Would you want to eat that food?
No. I'm going to go back to this too, because we were just talking about this earlier about the community. I remember when I was a girl, my mother and aunt lived across the street. We literally lived across the street from my aunt. Then we had cousins around the corner. So whenever someone went to the country and brought back all of the beans and the peas and all of the greens that they would get from the gardens, collective gardens of all the family members, these women would get together at one house. They would clean all of these greens. They would shuck all of these peas. They would separate them into bags. And then each mother took an equal portion of each. That's how they did it. We have to get back to the community part of it, of growing our foods, or at least go and gather the foods from farmer markets and coming back and taking the time. I mean, you get to fellowship with one another. It goes by faster, doing it like that so that you can cook your food. We've got to get back to cooking. It is the only way.
So a lot of things, it all comes together, right? Like we were talking to Paula Penn Neighbor. Remember she was saying how her church has a garden out back?
Yeah.
Like they grow food there for the congregation, right? And then we were talking to Reverend Keon Jackson and Nevin Perkins about the role of the church, right? Or any religious organization in our communities. Like they need to be playing a certain role, right? So right now we don't have that going on. Right. There's no community of some type, right? We don't have that community where we're taking care of each other.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what's missing. Right now,
right.
I was listening to Dr. Claude Anderson, and he was saying how right now we don't produce our own food.
Nothing.
We don't sell our own food. We don't really have, like, if you look at different races of people, whether they're Chinese, Indian, whatever, or different ethnicities, there's an industry that they have that you pretty much belongs to them. You go to them for that.
Yeah.
What do people come to us for? What are we producing in this world economy?
Nothing. I mean,
but we still have that in New Orleans. You want a mirliton? There are blacks who grow mirlitons. There's certain foods that you still have black farmers growing. They go to the French market, sell their foods, and they're at the farmer markets. We can do it.
You can do it.
We can do it. We've just got to get back to doing it.
You have to be deliberate.
Yeah, I mean, but unfortunately, you know, it's those small pockets that are only doing it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's funny you brought that up, because my father, he had posted something from Elijah Muhammad back in the day, and he was saying how, you know, the Chinese, the Indians, the Spanish people, or, you know, any other so-called race or whatever, has their thing, like you said, right? We don't have any of that. Like, we got stripped totally of that. We was fed something totally different from what we were.
And kept
you know
from
what I'm
building.
saying?
We got to say that too. Just slip that in there. This is not because we didn't do it. We tried.
Right.
But our government kept, interceded. Let's put it that way.
Oh yeah. I mean, we got affected the most.
Right. That's whole nother time. We could do a show just on like COINTELPRO and that kind of thing. We're not making
we're still doing it in the South, though. I will say this. We're still doing it in the South, and they're still doing it here in Texas. We've got black farmers who are still growing their own foods, and they're selling it at market.
That's
or even along the side of the road. I mean, you can ride down on Interstate 10 from here to Florida and find somebody black selling watermelon on the side of the road that they grew.
And see, Smile, that's like one of the biggest things that we just don't have up here.
We don't.
Like we just don't see it. I mean, only from going down south, I've seen it, so I know what you mean.
Yeah.
But it's just not something that we have up here, and that's.
It should be everywhere. Is what I'm saying.
It should be everywhere, but we still have it.
Right.
And a lot of us still buy from those who grow food who look like us, because we go to the farmers market here and do it. We still have them. And that's what we have to get back to, because when you help to support them, it helps them feed their family and feed the people who are in the fields bringing the food out that works alongside with them. So we have to do that. And this is how we keep our own health going and how we keep them going, especially since they can't get all of these expensive certificates for organic food. But even though it's grown the same way, it's sustainable food. They can call it sustainable, which is code word for organic. So we have to keep supporting our own, and that's what we do here. We support our own. And you can, I'm telling you, all the way down from, you ride 10 all the way to Florida, and you're gonna find blacks selling food.
You're in a great place.
Oh, we have our problems like anyone else, but it's at least we still have the farmers that we can support. Now here it's the same way if you're going through the Carolinas too.
Right.
Well, I think with that, I think one of our main issues, like I was saying, is that, Chinese people, Indian people, Spanish people, they have their culture intact.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? We lost our culture along the way. You know what I'm saying? Most of us think that our culture is soul food. You see what I'm saying? Cornbread, fried chicken, collard greens, mac and cheese. That's not our culture. That's not the food that's why I loved about Dr. Sebi, is because he said when we came over here, they didn't bring our food with us.
No, they didn't. And everybody else does have their food.
You go to the Chinese community, you go to the Indian community, you go to the Spanish community, they have their own food, they have their own culture, they have their own dance, they have their own language. You see what I'm saying? We are speaking American right now, English. You see what I'm saying? All them other races, they have their own thing. You know what I'm saying? So we lost all of that. And that's what we need to get back. We need to get our culture back first.
Well, I will say this, we still have some of that in New Orleans too. You're gonna get okra, you're gonna get mirlitones, you're gonna get all of these foods that come from Africa and the Caribbean, you're gonna get it from blacks there.
Right.
And plus, we're also indigenous. We're also mixed. I mean, what language do we speak when you do your DNA and you've got 6 different variations of African nations within you, and nobody can tell you what the tribe is. So we've had to create it as we've gone along.
Right.
And I think for the most part, we've been so resilient. We've been able to maintain parts of it because we've got the mustards and the collard greens, which are really healthy foods and kin to the kale family. Now they're not growing kale in Louisiana, but they are growing collards, they're growing mustards, they're growing turnips and turnip butts. This is what you get from black farmers down there. And you're going to get a lot of it. They've got fig trees where pecans, you're going to get tons of pecans and figs that you can buy in its raw state from down there in the farmers markets, and blacks are selling these. So we do have a bit of our culture still there. I don't tell anybody. I come from a place that's rich in the culture that we know. A lot of us are of Creole ancestry, so we still have some French within us, and we're still cooking like that and using those foods. And those foods did not come from France. They came from Haiti and different places like that. And remember I told you Dr. Sebi stayed in New Orleans because we have a huge Honduran population. So there is a cultural mix and a blend too that goes with that. What I have discovered, however, in my travels and different places that I've lived, once you leave the South, the folks who migrated up, our people who migrated to the North and to the West Coast and even Midwest, they wanted to forget it, so they didn't bring it with them.
Yeah.
So you guys have lost out on a lot of the culture that's still down there, but not up here.
I agree.
Because once they left, went to Chicago and then went to East Coast and the West Coast, they didn't want to remember that anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And they left it
shunned
behind.
it. They shunned it.
Yeah.
What you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. I mean, I remember that. I remember coming up, you know, when I was younger, you know, just being amongst people and talking about, you know, that whole separation of the North and the South. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you was from the North, you was the better person or whatever.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
and that's all they had was the food as their
we,
culture. You know, that's the only thing they held on to was the food. You know, the Southern food and the Southern way of cooking was the only thing really to me that was brought up to the North. Because I know that that's one of the things that my mom says that a lot of her family, you know, from the South, that was all they had. You know, like you said, they shunned every other part. So they held on to this food and these different Southern cooking. And, you know, well, we see what it's done to us.
Yeah, because, I mean, the last conversation we had, we were talking about, like, living off grid and stuff like that, right? Like, that was normal to us, living off grid. Now it's like you talk to somebody, you know, today, and they're like, what are you talking about? Off grid? What?
Right.
You know what I mean? I got to grow my own food. I got to do for myself.
Yeah.
Right.
My 92-year-old aunt still has a farm, and she has never fed a cow of hers. She's got a lot of them because I want to buy one from her. She's never fed her cows corn. It's not natural for a cow to eat corn.
Yeah.
They must be grass fed. She didn't put anything on the grass. She's got goats. You know, she's got a full farm that she still preserves food. She's maintained and held on to some ancestral ways of doing things that go all the way back to slavery. But how many people can say that? My parents too. It wasn't until my parents went to the city, my parents are now both in their 80s, that they never had macaroni and cheese. If you couldn't make your own pasta, you didn't have macaroni. So they didn't, that's not really a part of soul food from the South. Right. Macaroni and cheese is not a part of it. You've got other things that are not a part of what they consider soul food that they didn't have back then and they never ate. They did eat corn, but it's not the cornbread that you see now. It was stone ground corn from heirloom kernels. And that's the only cornbread I like. I'm not going to eat sweet cornbread. You might as well give me a piece of cake because I'm not going to eat it. I grew up on ancestral cornbread that was really husky, and you could taste the soda in it, the baking powder and soda in it. but that's what you were supposed to eat with greens. And I was taught to eat greens with my hands. I'm so glad I have that piece of our history left.
Really?
Because yeah, you never ate greens with a fork or as people eat it now, so sophisticated. You broke the bread and you picked it up. You picked the greens up with the bread, and that's how I grew up eating it. Because that's what my grandparents taught me on both sides, and all of my aunts and my uncles. But now we're so sophisticated, even in the South, we've left that part of our folklore behind. And so when you leave this behind, what do you have? You don't even have a point of reference. And we talked about that earlier. We've got to go talk to the older people. We've got to find out what they know. It's a little different where you guys are, because, as I said, your family's left. Your grandparents left.
Yeah.
They left it all behind.
Yeah.
But in the South, you talk to anybody older, you can still have a little piece of who you are.
Right.
Wow.
Little piece left.
Even the Caribbean people are more connected to our culture than
that's right.
Here in the United States. You know what I mean? So like my wife is Trinidadian. Her parents are straight from Trinidad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They even they eat differently. You know what I mean? Like so I mean, even though like their diet isn't as what it's supposed to be, you know, but even Africans don't even eat how they're supposed to eat these days. You know what I'm saying? But they have some sense of culture at least. You know what I mean?
Everybody's being wooed by the Western world, right? Thinking that it's superior, but it's killing you.
And what's funny is when we first moved to where we're at right now, there's a lot of Mexican restaurants, right? And I was doing a ride share, right? And I had picked this woman up and I was taking her to work. She happened to be Mexican. So I asked her, I said, well, where are the good like Mexican restaurants around here? And she said, well, there aren't really many, right? So, and I said, well, why do you say that? She said, because most of them aren't authentic. Okay? So a lot of the Mexican restaurants are being Americanized.
A little bit, right. They're Americanizing.
So, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like the same thing. Like a lot of the stuff that we do or that we used to do is now being, you know, Americanized.
Right.
Westernized, let me say that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So you know what's interesting? Like I usually bought a big bag of spelt flour to make bread and whatever, right? So, you know, I guess, I don't know what happened, but they sent me spelt berries. Really? And I looked at these berries and I'm like, what the heck? And a big bag of them too. So I'm like, what the heck am I supposed to do with a bag of spelt berries? Like, what am I supposed to do with this?
Plant them? Say no.
No, right? That's true. I didn't even think about that. But then I'm like, well, wait a minute. You know, I do have a Vitamix. So let me see if I could make flour from the Vitamix. So I did. And I made the bread from that flour as opposed to the flour that I usually get, right? So now normally I could eat 2 or 3 pieces of the bread with the flour. But what I made with the Vitamix, like from the berries, I could only eat 1. It filled me up. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
Really?
Yeah. So then I'm thinking, well, you know, what's the difference? Right? But I remember reading a while ago, a long time ago, that a lot of the mills that we have now are we got more advanced. So we grind the flour much more finer than what people used to do. They didn't have like these advanced mills.
Right.
So what I probably did with the Vitamix might have been close to what we used to do, which means I was eating more bread than I would have eaten before.
Yeah.
Right? And these are the little things that we don't realize is happening.
Let me ask you this, did it like rise the same? Did it like taste the same? Did it, you know what I mean?
Well, I didn't make yeast bread. I made flat bread. So like, you know, like chapati or whatever.
Right.
So, but it tastes the same. It was good. It was a little bit more, I want to say coarse. but it was still good,
Okay.
but I could not eat what I normally would have eaten in that meal. And all of us did. Like, we were like, wow, like, we're full with one piece of bread, you know? So what's the, you know? And I never would have known had that mistake not had happened. You know? So there's so many things. Yeah, there's so many things. Yeah, I would go to like Whole Foods and see the wheat berries there or whatever, or the spot. I'd be like, sure, I ain't buying that. I'm getting the flour. You know, I ain't got time for that.
Right.
You know, when really with a Vitamix is only a couple of minutes. Like literally.
Yeah,
it's like,
that's what I have.
You know?
I love my Vitamix.
Oh yeah, I could. That's the bee's knees right there.
Yeah. That's the top of the line to me.
Oh yeah. There's so many things you could do with it. So
and it lasts a long time.
Yeah, and you know, if something happened to it, just call them, and their customer service, and even out of warranty.
It's worth it. The investment.
Yes. Oh yeah, it's definitely worth the investment.
Yeah.
So, but I never would have known that. Like, I never would have realized that there's.
You just taught me something.
Yeah, and how that flour is milled. You know, that it would make I would assume it's the same flour, it's the same berries, right? But I don't have their advanced milling machine,
right?
You know, and
you can't get it as fine, yeah.
Neither did our ancestors.
No.
You know what I mean? And they were healthier and stronger than we are.
Right.
You know what I mean? They didn't have like they didn't have the gut problems that we have and all of that stuff. So I was like, wow, that's a wake up call. Right. You know? So how much of that do we need to peel back to go back to, like, even like what Sheila was saying, right? Where she was talking about all these things that we don't know, that we need to backtrack and bring it all back together again.
She taught me stuff. I never knew that either.
Me too.
Like the corn and stuff like that. And
yeah.
Like she said, she made a good point about the macaroni and cheese, like pasta.
Right.
You make your own pasta. You didn't have pasta. They didn't have. She said her mother and father or her grandparents didn't have pasta.
Right.
So I didn't even think of that.
You know what I mean?
You know?
So many things we take for granted now that really we need to kind of rethink. We need to step back, learn from our elders while they're still around, right? Mm-hmm. And rethink everything.
That I think that's the key, is pretty much reaching back to the ancestors, at least to those that are still alive.
Right.
Well, elders, I should say, not ancestors, but the elders.
It's true, because my family never ate rice. They never ate rice. If you didn't grow it, you didn't eat it. But in Opelousas, where Keon's family comes from, they grew rice, so they ate rice.
Mm.
And everything was indigenous to where you were. Everything was stone ground. That's what you were talking about, Samaya. That's probably what the Vitamix did, is stone ground it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I grew up on stone ground cornbread. I will not eat cornbread unless it's stone ground. So if I want cornbread, I have to cook my own.
Well, where do you even get stone ground corn to make cornbread? Where do you get that from?
Sometimes Whole Foods will have it in the bin.
Oh yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
You know what? I've seen it. I just never paid it any mind.
Right.
Like, I didn't feel like it meant anything whether it was stone ground or not.
It means a lot, because that's the ancestral way of grinding corn. It's not meant to look like fine powder. The way you see corn, it's not meant to look like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we never ate bread because my grandmother didn't make bread. She never made bread. Mm. As a result, my mother never made bread. So I didn't start eating bread until my mother went to work, which was when I got to be, 8th grade, my mother went to work. And that's when she started she called it light bread, because she didn't even know what the name of bread was. She called it light bread. I'm gonna get you and your brother some light bread to fix your sandwich. And that's when we started preparing sandwiches. Because
so why didn't your grandmother eat bread though, I wonder? Like, was it just something that wasn't indigenous to the area?
Yeah, they didn't grow. What they didn't grow, they didn't eat. Yeah. So she didn't grow wheat. She didn't grow anything to make flour.
Mm-hmm.
But she would make a cake on occasions. And I've never had another cake like it. I mean, she didn't buy icing. She didn't do any of that. Powdered sugar, she didn't do any of that. So she would go get a small bag, like a 1 pound bag of flour, and she'd make a cake with that. And she would only put a cup and a half of sugar in the cake. The rest of the sugar, the cake would be hot and she would sprinkle on the top. So it'd be like a sugar cake. It was really good. A cake doesn't need that much sugar. But that was only on a special occasion. We didn't have sweets. The sweets that we would have, they grew a lot of sweet potatoes. Potatoes were really common. They grew a lot of potatoes, all kinds of potatoes. So she would take sweet potatoes, she would chop onions up, she'd grow wild onions, she'd chop wild onions and garlic from the garden in it. And it is really good if you ever have it. And she would put a little bit of, they grew sugar cane. So they had their own blackstrap molasses. She put a little bit of blackstrap molasses in it, and it was really good. And she would serve it over cornbread. Wow. They grew corn, and that's why we had cornbread. But they didn't grow wheat. And nobody in the community grew it. So bread, you couldn't sell a loaf of bread up there if you're trying to sell it to blacks, because they only ate what they grew. And that's why these people live to be so old.
And this is in Louisiana, you said?
In Louisiana, northern Louisiana.
Cool.
Now they had other areas, but you had to travel hours to get to these other areas where they grew rice and stuff. And you could go to market and get it, but they didn't buy stuff like that at market. They didn't buy milk. They didn't buy eggs. The only thing, like I say, my grandmother bought at market was vanilla extract and flour. And she only bought flour on special occasions.
Wow.
Because she pickled her own meat. She salted her own meats because they had their own hogs. And she would have these big barrels outside where she'd have all this salt they would buy from the feed store. And then she'd put certain parts of the pig in there. She'd take a little piece. We called it salted meat. She'd take a little piece and fry it in the skillet, to give the greens flavor. But you didn't eat it. You put it on the side because it was nothing but back fat, just to give it flavor. She created her own lard. She had tallow and lard. The tallow came from the beef fat. The lard came from the pigs. She made her own butter. I mean, they just had everything of their own. And it was just better eating. And it's hard to find good food that tastes like that now. And you did not eat meat every day. You ate meat once a week on Sunday when they killed a hen or a chicken or a turkey or whatever they had in the yard.
Wow.
And somehow within their knowledge, she had geese, she had ducks. We would eat the eggs, or she put the eggs, in the cornbread or something like that, but she never ate them. And I would ask her, you're not going to eat the ducks to get, the grease from them? When I found out about goose grease. And what made me ask her, she went out and bought goose grease. Because one of the kids, the grandchildren, was sick. I said, why you buy it? You got a big goose out there. Can't get the grease from the goose. I didn't know you had to kill a goose. A little girl. She said, oh, no. We don't eat anything with webbed feet. You don't eat them. They just give you eggs, and, they keep the pool the pond pretty clean when you want to go catch fish.
Really?
Yeah. There is so much that they knew back then, and I'm sure there's still some people old enough to tell us the story. I know my aunt is. She's in her 90s. We need to have a pilgrimage down south where we just stop at different places. Wouldn't that be fun?
Oh, that would be fun.
And talk to older people who could tell us some of this. And write about it. This should be a book so that we can educate our own people on how they stayed thin, why they were healthier than we were, even eating some of the stuff that they ate, because we've been fooled and lied to. We've been made to believe that if you have this tallow and lard and what have you, you're going to end up with cholesterol so high it's going to give you a heart attack. And I don't know any of them that died of a heart attack. Those are medium chain fats, actually. And they didn't cook with a whole lot of it, just a little bit of it. In
They
black
did
skin.
margarine instead, right? They replaced those things with margarine, which is
Yeah, all of that's
good for
been
you.
replaced. Yeah, with margarine and raw milk and butter. We didn't drink milk. She never had milk for us to drink. You milked a cow if you had a cold or something, and she would milk just enough to get the raw milk, because somehow it would make you better if you had like a whooping cough. If you had a whooping, she called it, she said, "Ooh, that's a whooping cough." I don't know if it was really a whooping cough, but if you kept coughing and coughing and coughing, you couldn't control it, she would either bring mare's milk or cow's milk. She'd go down there and get some of it, fresh, raw, and tell you to drink it.
Wow.
And I'm
That's
telling you, in 2
in
days,
the face of what we know.
it's a huge slap in the face of what we know. Eggs never went in the refrigerator like we have now. They stayed out on the counter.
Wow.
And they never went bad. I mean, there's just so much information that our people knew about food. And if you think back, how many people, well, I can't speak for the North, but I know growing up, everybody was living to be 100 back then.
Mm-hmm.
And they did not go to the doctor. If they went late in life to the doctor for something they couldn't control. And these are women, we're talking about women who had 10 babies. They were having up to 10 children. So there's information that we're not privy to because we lost that part of our history. And we need to know more about that.
Yes.
Especially about how do we keep ourselves healthy. They didn't have baby food. They nursed and they gave babies. My grandmother's, I would ask my grandmother, because she always would say, I need a piece of beef meat because I can feel my blood low. And this is just how she's feeling. She's talking about she was feeling anemic. She said, my blood's feeling low. Whew, I need a piece of beef meat. Go get me a piece out of the freezer. I'm going to have to stew it down. And then she would stew it down. She might eat about that big a piece of it. But what she would do is she would drink the juice off of it. It had to have a bone in it. Now I understand she was drinking bone broth.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Yeah.
She was drinking bone broth to remineralize her body, to build her blood back up so that she would feel better.
Wow.
And I just, boy, if I knew back then what I know now, I'd have written everything down.
Right.
There's
so much.
Well, it's still there.
There's so much because our ancestors, what they did is they survived in the conditions they were in, right? Because they didn't have access to, they endured slavery, they endured Jim Crow, but they were able to use what they had around them, the land they had around them, or whatever, to survive.
Right.
You know what I mean? Whatever that meant. They were able to tune into survival, and that's why
we're still talking about just the 60s.
Right.
So we're not talking about old ancestors. We're talking about family members that we can connect to. Because even she would tell me after having a baby, it's important that a woman drinks the juice from the broth. She would call it the broth from the vegetables. I mean, they would cook down these greens and drink the juice from it. You didn't eat. You just drank. That's all you did. You drank bone broth and you drank warm vegetable. I call it vegetable juice, but I guess it was vegetable broth too.
They call it pot liquor in my family.
What they call it?
Pot liquor.
Oh, pot liquor. But you know what I mean. And this is what they gave the women to, by the time they came out after 6 weeks, their bellies were back flat. And these are women that had babies at home. They looked healthy and remineralized. So they knew a lot. And they had to get that from their mother, who got it from their mother. I mean, this is our history that we don't know. This is our ancestral history on this land.
This is a culture. Yeah.
This is our culture. That's right, Aisha. This is our culture that we don't have a part of anymore.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's what we have to reconnect back to, because the truth is that it's very hard for us to relate as a people, to relate to what is going on in Africa or their culture. It's hard to connect, because we don't there's just no connection to Africa. I mean,
this is our connection. That's right.
This is our connection.
This is our connection.
You know,
and this is what we have to connect.
That back is enough. You know, and that's what we have to begin to understand.
Right.
Right.
That'll connect us back there too, because a lot of the stuff that our ancestors were doing here came directly from Africa.
Right, it is, but you can't skip the fact that we migrated from the South. So you have to connect everything. You have to connect all the dots, not just jump over. You know,
your culture, no matter, I don't care who you are as a Black person in this country, your culture is down here in the South.
It is.
And this is where you got to connect back to first.
Wow.
Because when I want to look at my ancestors, if I want to look into what my great-grandmother's life was, it's the South. It's not, down. If you keep going, yes, it all goes back to Africa, but it's the South. You know, I'm not going that far back. I'm just going just a couple of generations. My grandmother was born in Georgia, and on my grandfather's side is North Carolina. You know, so that's where all that information comes from. They were there for a long period of time. There's a lot of culture that happened there. So I can't not look at that portion of it and just jump all the way to before that time.
And you survived. You're here today because they survived.
Exactly. So we need to do what they were doing. They survived here.
In this country.
They survived here.
So Zahir, I'm curious, right? Because you recently made that pilgrimage back down. Like now you're in the South, right, from the North. Have you picked, like, do you see some of this that we're talking about, like being there?
Not yet. I haven't been here that long, so.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're in Atlanta. That's a little different. Yeah, Atlanta's metropolitan. He'd have to go to the country parts of
South,
Georgia to find that. Yeah, more southern down.
I could tell the difference between the North and the South because I was able to travel all around Atlanta. And it's different down there. It's a whole nother world down there.
And it's
like, you know what I mean? Like, it's funny because me and my wife talk about it all the time. And we're attracted to the southern part of Atlanta. And the reason why is because it's like, we both said to each other, it's like, it don't feel like we really left. You know what I'm saying? Still feel like we're in the same area where we were before we moved here. You know, we kind of want that land and be able to grow our food and, you know, not have your neighbor right next to you and all that stuff. You know what I mean? So that's what is attractive to us is the southern part of it. You know what I mean? So eventually we'll get there.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I think we're gonna move towards concluding now, so that we can. But this has been such a wonderful discussion.
Absolutely. I really learned every time I learn from all y'all.
Yeah, this has been we have to keep the discussion going too, because I feel like there's so much for us to talk about, so much for us to think about, and we have to rethink everything. That's what Dr. Sebi did, right? Like he was eating a sad diet, the standard American diet, and went through being sick and all that. He literally had to roll back everything.
Yeah, he was obese.
Yeah.
He was really big.
Diabetic too, right? Wasn't he?
I don't know if he was no, he was impotent. He might have been diabetic.
Yeah, like he had a lot of stuff going on, and he had to rethink it all, you know, and that's basically the process that we're going to have to do on this journey, you know. But we help each other with these conversations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know.
Yes. We're able to reach so many different people.
Right.
You know what I mean? If we're able to reach one person, you know.
That makes all the difference.
That's it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You know, that's right. So if you're watching, thank you for watching us. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook. We're on Twitter as MyBlackHealth2, and we're also on Instagram as MyBlackHealth. So look for us on Facebook, MyBlackHealth, like our page, subscribe to us on MyBlackHealth on YouTube, And stay in touch. Watch our videos. And also, Zahir, tell us where they can tell the audience where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find us. We're Cipher Living, and I'll spell it SCIPHER Living. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We're not on LinkedIn yet, or a couple of the other ones just yet, but that's where you can find us. And like you said, just like, subscribe, or whatever like that. We have some good content up there. We also have a website where we sell herbs and stuff like that, the things we were talking about today about healing the body, and that's cipherliving.com. So you can go there and see what we have to offer. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So check out his website and check out his social media. And don't forget to like and subscribe there as well to continue on with the conversation.
Right.
Thank you so much.
No doubt.